Hello, sixth graders. Today, and if you happen to not be a sixth grader, I'm glad you're tuning in. Feel free to join in on our lesson because I think that this is something that you will be able to understand also. Sixth graders, I know you might not know me. My name is Serena White. I'm a longtime math teacher. I don't know if I want to tell you guys how many years I taught math, but it's over 10, okay? So, and I've taught sixth grade and many other grades. I actually work in central office now, so some of you might see me coming in and out of buildings, and sometimes I come in your classrooms. So it's a privilege to be able to do this for you today. And know that when I do get to come in your classrooms, I love engaging with you guys and talking to you about what you're learning and what you're doing and hearing whatever jokes you have to tell me when I come through. So, but anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to begin today's lesson. There we go. Okay, so today we're going to cover this standard. I'm not going to worry you with this standard until after we are done with the lesson. So, but just to let you know, this is the standard that we're covering. If you have already talked about coordinate planes in your class, know that this is a review, but it's a good review over what we're doing. Okay, in fifth grade mathematics, you covered just quadrant 1. And in fifth grade, you talked about how the horizontal line down here at the bottom is the x-axis, and the vertical line is the y-axis. You probably also, I'm going to label some things that I wasn't able to add. You probably also labeled something that is essential, which is this point right here. Does anyone know what that's called? Okay, I hope a few of you remembered, because it is called the origin. And it is essential. I know my writing's horrible, isn't it? It's okay. Okay, did y'all all see origin? Okay, and it has an ordered pair. We're going to talk about what that, and that is 0, 0. We're going to talk more about ordered pairs as we go throughout this lesson. But this is the basics of what you did in fifth grade, except you also graphed points. Let me get rid of that ink. So, one thing is that you took ordered pairs and you graphed them on a quadrant 1 coordinate plane. Now, the reason why I'm saying quadrant 1, you'll learn in a minute, because we're going to get to the other quadrants, which is really exciting. But something you probably learned about ordered pairs is it's an x coordinate and then a comma and a y coordinate. You go horizontal, then vertical. Okay, so now we have point A, which is 2, 3. So we're going to start at the origin. Always make sure you start at the origin. And then we're going to go horizontally. We're going to follow the horizontal axis, which is the x-axis, over 2, and then up 3, following the vertical axis, and we're going to label that point A. Okay, everybody good? Now we're going to do this, we're going to move to point B, which is 4, 1. So I move over 4, up 1, I label it, that is point B. Everyone notice, where did I start? I started at the origin. Always start at the origin. My next point, so I've done A, I've done B, now I have C, which is 5, 5. So I start at the origin, I go over 5, up 5, and that is point C. So everybody good? These are pretty basic. Now here are a few that get a little tricky. So I wanted to go over these before we move on to expanding our coordinate plane. So this next one, D, is 0, 1. And sometimes that 0 can throw us off. So it says 0, 1. But remember, it's 0 going horizontally. So do I move anywhere? If I'm starting at 0, do I move anywhere horizontally? No. I stay right where I am. Okay? So then it says vertically up 1, and I put my point, so it's on the axis, which throws us sometimes. It gets a little confusing because we're hesitant, and I get it, we're hesitant about whether something should be on the axis. That is correct, and so that is point D. Then we move on to 1, 0. So again, I go, 1 tells me to go horizontal first. So I go 1, but 0 tells me to stay. So I stay right at that axis, and that is point E. The last one that I have here is 0, 0. Well, let's think about this because sometimes this throws us. But if I start right here at the origin and I don't move anywhere horizontally and I don't move vertically, I'm where I started. So I am at this point, which is that very, very important point, which is the origin. So that is 0, 0, which is F. Okay? So that's our review of what you did in 5th grade before we move on to what you're doing in 6th grade. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 6th grade edition of content. Everything okay? Okay. Sorry, I'm talking to my videographer. I'm not used to having a videographer. So, but now we're going to talk about the important parts of a coordinate plane because it's really important that you understand some essential parts before we move on. The first couple of things we've already talked about, but we're going to emphasize again. Notice there's an X here. Why? Because it's the X axis. And I'm going to try to write neat. I struggle with that. I don't know if you do, but I really do. And then I look at this line, this red one, and notice it has a Y at the top. That's because that is the Y axis. Now think again back to what we were just doing. What was something else that I said was really, really important? I hope you remember that it was this point right here. And I hope you remember that we said that we call that point the origin. Very, very important as we move through coordinate plane. The next thing, you're not going to have to know anything about this. Well, you're not going to have to use this in this lesson. You will later. And you will definitely have to know about this going forward. But each one of these quadrants, so a quadrant, think about it. Quad means 4. So this plane is divided into 4 parts. So this has 4 parts. Everything you did last year as a 5th grader, but now you're big 6th graders, was in this quadrant right here, quadrant 1. So I'm just going to put a Q there and a Roman numeral 1. Okay? Quadrant 1, that is the positive and positive side. Then it does something that it is kind of atypical for us. It goes backwards or counterclockwise. Quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So those are the quadrants. Again, not essential knowledge at this point, but kind of interesting. You know what you could do later is show your parents one of these and ask them if they know which quadrants they are, because some of them will know and some of them will have forgotten. So those are the important things that we need to know before we go on to graphing. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we are going to graph some ordered pairs on this coordinate plane, but it's different. It has stuff that our quadrant 1 coordinate plane did not have. Can anyone look at it and tell me what's different? Hopefully you see that on this side it extends and those numbers are negative. And also the red line beneath the intersect with the origin has negative numbers also. Okay, that's very, very important because that is what defines the different quadrants. Now, you have been working with negative numbers this year in 6th grade, so you're familiar with them. But graphing them, you probably have not done yet. So we're going to begin with a positive ordered pair. Always begin with something you know, and then move into some of the new things. So notice that this graph got a little smaller. That's okay, we can handle it. So let's go back. Where do we start? Hopefully you remember that you start at the origin. So we start right here, and we go 2, 3. So I go across 2 and up 3. Is it working? There we go. It's a little off. And that is point A. Okay? But let's look at point B. -2, -3. Now remember, we have to start at the origin and then go horizontally according to that coordinate. So that's my x coordinate, -2. So it tells me to go to -2, which is backwards. So I go backwards, -2. So I go up backwards to -2, and then it says -3. Well, that means that I don't go up because that's +3. I go, what do you think? I go down. I go 1, 2, 3, and that's -3. And right here is my point, which is point B. How many of you agree? Okay, excellent job. So now let's look at point C. So now I have a -5, 2. So I start at the origin. I go to -5, which means I go backwards to -5. And I rise 2. So it is right here. D, 7, -4. So again, notice every time, guys, where am I starting? The origin. So I go back to the origin, go over to 7, but then it's negative, so I don't go up, I go down to -4. And that is point D. On point E, I start at the origin, and I'm go to -5, but whoa, wait, oh man, it has one of those zeros. So, okay, let me think about this again. I start at the origin, I go backwards to -5, but then that 0 tells me that I do what? I stop. I don't move up or down. So my actual point is right here on the x-axis, which is point E. Now I'm going to go to F, which is 0, -9. So I start here, but it says what? It says 0. So I don't move on the x-axis. Then it says -9, so I don't go up, I go down. And that is point F. So now we have successfully graphed positive and negative numbers in all 4 quadrants. Now notice, I want to point out a couple of things because we don't have time. I'm noticing my time. Y'all know how teachers always run out of time? I'm still one of those teachers. Who would have thought it? So, but I want to point something out. That when you graph something that's in this quadrant over here, it's always an ordered pair. I'm going to change my color because I can, and that's fun. Okay, it's always an ordered pair that is positive, positive. So the x is always positive and the y is always positive. Every time. Only way you can get in quadrant 1. Okay, so let's think about what you have to do to get in quadrant 2. Well, to get in quadrant 2, let's see, you have to move this way, so that is a what? A negative. So the x-coordinate has to be negative, and the y-coordinate has to be positive. Then, so let's think about quadrant 3. What do I have to do if I'm a point and I want to end up in quadrant 3? Well, I have to go this direction. I have to move to the left horizontally. So I have to be a negative number. And I have to go down vertically, so I have to be what? You're right, a negative number. And then, so here I'm left with quadrant 4. If I look at this, in order to end up in quadrant 4, I'm positive, my x value is positive, and my y value is negative. I know my handwriting's horrible. This board is giving me trouble, but I know your teachers say that all the time, so you're not familiar. That's not unusual to you. But do you see the difference? And that's why we have different quadrants, because the different quadrants separates the data for us. We'll get to that data stuff in consecutive lessons. Now, had this really fun thing prepared, and we're going to do it in the next lesson. We're going to use these points, I don't know if you've ever done this before, to create a picture, okay? So I'm going to actually share this with your teacher so they can put it in your Google Classroom, so you can do it on paper beforehand. But in our next lesson, we're going to see if we can make a picture with this. And I guarantee that some of you will be able to do it. So let's talk real quick about what we did today. So today, we didn't solve any real world problems because we hadn't gotten to that yet. That's okay. We solved mathematical points by graphing points in all 4 quadrants of the coordinate plane. Okay, we will get to the real world problems. But you know, sometimes you got to learn how to do the math and then you relate it to the real world. So, and we're going to include coordinates and absolute value to find distances between the points with the same first coordinate and or the second coordinate. Again, that's something that we're touching on in that activity that we're going to do next time. So this is the standard that we covered. So if you want to know, just so you know what part of it we covered today, we covered this part in the last 20 minutes. The rest we will get to. So now, last thing I want to tell you, oops, let me clear my ink. I want to tell you thank you for tuning in, students. We are excited at Monroe City Schools to offer these lessons on TV. We thank KNOE for allowing us this privilege of doing so. But we want to tell you guys that we care about you guys. We hope that you are safe, that your family is safe, and that this time that you're doing what is recommended by the governor, by the CDC. Wash your hands a lot. Use your mask. Here's mine. I just took it off right before the video. But if you go out anywhere where there's not just your family members, you need to be wearing a mask. So take care of yourselves, take care of your family, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.